Hello, everybody, and welcome to That Milan podcast, what is supposed to be the official episode of the week, but yours truly messed that up. We have Santangelo here. We had Wayne Gerard on yesterday, but we finally got our special and coveted guest that we've been working on for, I don't know, months, I guess, Jad. So Jad from Barra Bruvva is on here. We've been connected for quite some time, and we finally just got you on here. Had a terrible season last year, obviously, for Milan in an embarrassing fashion. I know you're a very harsh critic of most things when it comes to Milan, but firstly, how are you doing? And yeah.
Well, thank you first of all for having me on. Always wanted to be on this podcast. I've been a big fan of you both. And yes, like you said, it's been a stressful year. And I'll be honest, I don't think it's doesn't look like it's gonna get any better, but we'll see. And like you said, I've been called a pessimistic fan in
You're not alone, though.
in the
There's like
past. But yeah, I think people are
thousands of you guys. Yeah.
slowly starting to catch up. But yeah, thank you for having me on, guys.
Yeah, of course. And again, everything is going to be in the description, just in case you miss it, and all the stuff on the ticker there. You do Barra Bruvva's. You're out in the UK. Obviously, if you couldn't tell by the accent and just the obvious spelling of those words there. So, you want to just give like a little bit of a background of the stuff that you do in the content space. Obviously, you guys discuss like a whole bunch of stuff on there. So like it's not even just like strictly football. Some of the stories and stuff that you guys have done have gone viral because you guys do very well on Instagram from what I remember, and TikTok, I think, but I don't really go on there as much. So kind of give a little breakdown on who you are, because you're a little newish in the Milan community when it comes to content making. You're more of like, like bigger, broader stuff like you've been doing on your pod.
Of course. So, Barra Bruvva is what me and my friend Hussein started off. We kind of think of it as more of like the less analytical kind of stuff, because we look at different podcasts and we don't always talk about match reviews and we don't talk about stats and we don't go into the details like that. Sometimes we like to do that, but we kind of pride ourselves on bring the entertainment side to it. We kind of see the podcast as literally sitting down, those conversations that you have with your friends at the bar, at a restaurant, whenever you're out, just talking about football. And that's literally how it started with me and Hussein. We would sit down, speak about football, see the funny side to it, remember nostalgic stuff, and just come up with crazy scenarios in our head. And we were like, why not create a podcast about that? And literally, yeah, week in, week out, we try our best to find these crazy stories and show that to the world. And as much as we can, we'd love to put our own personalities out there as well. And I think that's what people enjoy. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And the studio is fantastic, too. So it's really great space that you guys record in. So the main reason why we have you on, and the shirt that you got on today, is Milan. Obviously, I had this up, guys, as the initial graphic. This game was terrible. A lot of the times there are performances with Milan where the result could be varying, like a 2-2 draw, for example, versus Torino. I think everybody, the cumulative thinks that was a bad performance too. I think everyone agrees that they just pulled that out of their ass. But this one in particular, and the game that we're talking about, from minute 1 to 2, basically, was garbage. I didn't get a chance to watch the first half live. I did eventually. And then like I was just like done with it after 5 to 10 minutes. There was nothing else to see. When that goal was conceded on that first one, Matt, I'll go to you first, and then I know Jad, you have a whole thing on the defense, and you have for quite some time now. This was elementary. This was childish. It was so bad, and the excuses are impossible. You can't come up with an excuse for anything that you saw in that first goal. So we'll just start with Davide Calabria got burnt again. Like, it is genuinely exhausting to watch a player as a fullback at this modern game where everything is predicated on physicality be that slow. And when your positioning is that poor against players like this, you're only going to get burnt. And especially if you have aspirations and with the Champions League and all that kind of stuff, everyone's a great athlete at this level, and especially the higher teams. So the fact that he still kept getting minutes, I understand with Emerson Royale, that's still a separate issue. Then you just see the coverage, and I had a still screenshot of Teo Hernandez and where he was standing and what he was doing on that goal. I don't care if he came in late preseason. If you're on the pitch and you're playing, you are going to be judged like you should be, and that's a starter for AC Milan. And many, by the way, are advocating as a captain. He showed anything but being a captain that game. There's one thing if you're just beat by someone making a great move, like if Messi just destroys you, for example, hats off to him, right? Because that's a great player. What we can't excuse is this star left back who wants to get a pay increase with his contract extension this summer, not even being relatively close to the goal scorer in Dennis Mann in this one. And regardless of how good Dennis Mann is and how well Parma have played, that's an inexcusable goal. He doesn't even look around on his right shoulder to see where he is. He's a few feet in front of him, and it just looks like where he's ball watching on his left shoulder, and he turns to the right, he then realizes that there was a player there to score a tap-in. Because both of these goals for Parma were tap-ins, and there could have been, 4 to 5 goals, guys, that could have happened in this one. It was so disgraceful and so bad that you're still seeing the same issues from last season and down the stretch where they could not stop conceding. And this was two years in a row, or even the season prior when they were lucky to make top 4. Remember when they conceded like 4 or 5 goals to Sassuolo, and then I think Lazio scored 3 or 4 on them in consecutive games. They had never conceded that many goals in back-to-back games in the 21st century. And we're talking about banter-era teams that were garbage, devoid of talent, weren't doing that. And we're seeing a team that supposedly is supposed to fight for the title and go deep into the Champions League, all these aspirations, and they can't stop anybody. It's really bad. For constantly cite the stat, 49 goals conceded last season in Serie A. That was below mid-table, like right by Monza. It's really bad. It's garbage. And then, Matt, you hear comments from players like Yunus Musa saying, I don't know whether to defend or attack. Bro, never say that, ever. Like, even if it's true, like, you can't admit that. You admitting that your loss makes you look bad, it makes your teammates look bad, and it makes your manager look bad. Yeah. So kind of start with like that first goal and then everything else, because everything is just about the defense in this one.
Well, first, want to predicate and preface everything that, this is a podcast that prides itself on fairness in judging players and judging coaches, judging management, judging whatever, right? We might have an opinion on a player overall, but we can judge a performance in a one-off situation. For example, we can say, hey, we believe Davide Calabria isn't a great player, but he played well in this game, or he didn't play well in this game. And I'm going to apply that same thing to Teo Hernandez here, because I agree with you. I think you're a player that, has been at the club for a handful of years now, since 2019, has grown exponentially as a player, has taken on a lot more responsibility as a player, and wants to take on more responsibility as a player within the form of a renewal and a potential captaincy. You can't put that performance on the pitch match day 2 when the defense is already reeling. This is a team that's already under pressure. You have a lot of changes defensively. That's inexcusable. I can excuse a player, to your point, getting absolutely beat. Dennis Mann played fantastic these first 2 games. He looks like a real player, and there's a reason why so many people have been, speaking on what he was doing in Serie B, and they figured it would translate over to Serie A, and sure enough,
Brad had a tweet. He showed it today.
And I'm looking at the collective with this Milan team, and the one thing I will never be able to excuse is lack of effort with the team. It's not like a player playing, hey, this is an extra time game. We don't have any more subs. This is a 3-sub, format like it was years ago, where it's like, okay, this guy's clearly injured. He's just trying to get through the game. This is the first few minutes of the match, and this is the players jogging back when you're getting absolutely obliterated on a counter and you're in their yard. I think that sets a major, major issue when we already had such a miserable first game. You go on the road against a team that it just got promoted, and this is the standard you set. This is the type of performance you put in, and you say, hey, this is AC Milan right now. You don't defend well. You don't track back. You're getting beat basically the same way twice for both goals. Both goals were almost carbon copies of one another.
Yeah.
Good movement by the wingers, yes, but not getting back and then passes in behind and just being 1 or 2 steps there and simple tap-ins. And, match day 1, Mike Maignan was called in quite a bit to make some key saves. This game, I felt bad for him because he didn't even have a chance to make a save. You didn't even put him in a situation where you're like, all right, Mike, we need you to come out with a save. It was him standing there, basically looking at an onslaught of Parma guys charging forward, and our defense sleeping at the wheel, not tracking back, not covering their man, like elementary mistakes that continue to persist with this Milan. And it's very concerning. I understand that it's early days under Fonseca. There's a lot of new players. I get all that. But this isn't last year with Pioli when he had 8-9 new players. This is still Tomori. This is still Teo, Calabria. Like, this is still more or less the same team we had last year. So what's the excuse? So this is and don't even get me started on Emerson, because him walking around in the back of his own end and then just has a side pass to nobody and they nearly get another goal. Like, this team is way off.
The viral clip.
And I thought that match day 1 would have been a wake up call, but apparently it wasn't, because they followed it up with an even worse performance.
Chad, I know you have a lot of comments on stuff here, so I guess we'll go to. I want your opinions on the fullback, and also, by the way, with Teo and the lack of effort, I forgot what media channel literally tracked how much slower he was. I think he was like 7 to 8 kilometers slower than the player that scored on both goals. So he's literally not running as fast, and this is supposed to be one of the fastest players in the world in terms of like starters at big clubs. So the fact that's just like, I don't even know how to even come up with some reasoning for that. Like, that's so bad for me. I don't even want him to be captain anymore with that, because that should never happen ever. You know what I mean? Like, it's the effort thing is the last thing that you should ever worry about when you're talking about a future captain, right? Like Sandro Tonali, do we ever have to worry about effort with him? And I don't want to like single out Teo, because you could apply the same to Leao to an extent, but my God, like this is just elementary stuff, bro. Like, this is really bad.
I want to first of all just mention what Matt said as well. I mean, going into this game, especially after the Torino game, you would have never expected a performance like that. But then again, I don't want to say I'm surprised, because I want to compare it to last season where the defense was like the same. I'm not seeing anything different. I think the only reason it kind of annoys me even more, because it's a new coach and you're expecting something different, but we're seeing the same things, especially with the fullback. So in terms of Theo Hernandez, just like you, I was only able to catch, I think, maybe the last 10 minutes of the game, to be fair. And I wish I didn't even tune into any of it. But I watched extended highlights, and I saw the goals and saw the chances we created, the chances they created also. And in terms of Theo, but I don't think it's just Theo. I think it's the whole team. There's a lot of lack of defensive discipline. I feel like a lot of the players in the team, they just don't want to track back. Theo especially, and it wasn't just the first goal, by the way. I don't know if you remember the second goal. A lot of people pointed out Leao when he tried to
he lost the ball forward.
He tried pushing the field.
Hands on his knees on the other side.
And he stayed put. But if you watch Theo in that goal as well, Pavlovic has no idea who to track. It's either the back post or their striker in the middle.
Reinders as well was like dragging back centrally.
But then you exactly. But you kind of expect Theo with his pace and the fact that he's a defender in the first place. Like, and like I was saying before, this isn't something new. It's something that I've actually noticed with Theo, that he does lack that defensive discipline, and it feels like I only see it when he's against Dumfries. Literally every time we play against Inter, that's where he shows that he wants to track back and wants to be passionate and defend and all of that kind of stuff. But I didn't see it in that Parma game, but I don't think it's fair to kind of just point him out. I think there's a lot of
the right backs were just as bad.
The right backs were literally just as bad, and Calabria I can speak on for days. I don't know if I want to get into that. And Emerson is a completely different story, but Calabria as well, like you said, for the first goal getting burnt. And the thing is, with Theo not tracking back and Calabria getting burnt, that's in the 2nd minute of the game. It's not even like deep into the game. You have no excuse.
Your legs aren't supposed to be tired.
Exactly. And I remember a tweet I put out a year ago where you actually replied to Martino as well, which was about Tomori and Chow, and I was like, I don't like the fact that they're too far forward and they kind of get drawn into defenders straight away, because it's just that high line. And I feel like the reason that Pioli and now Fonseca probably do the same thing is because those defenders like Theo and Tomori have that speed to recover if they were to get spun. However, it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work. And we saw that in that first goal, because as soon as they were spun, all they have to do is cut it across the field and Calabria will get burnt. It's that easy. It's that easy. And teams are clocking onto it. And if I'm honest, I don't feel like there's a team in Serie A looking at that Milan defense and thinking they're scared or anything. I think every single game from now on, they're just going to target the same areas, which they have been doing, by the way. And what makes it worse is this is a newly promoted side.
It is. And the thing is, I respect Parma because Parma is one of the unique big promoted sides. This isn't like some like loser club. And Matt and I both picked Milan to win last game, but we knew Parma would give them a tough game. They played great against Fiorentina. And just to give Parma credit in a second, also like the defensive communication, right? Theo has been involved in 3 of the 4 goals so far this season where his communication is so bad. And you could also like do this with the center backs because him and Chow on that second goal against Torino was horrendous. And again, Sempre Milan, Ali Fisher, all these guys talk about the collective, which John, you're talking about too. And that's totally fair because we all know like it's like Moses parting the sea and it's just a gulf of emptiness and space where teams can just attack centrally for the midfield, right? Because they don't protect anything. There was an example of Musa I'll get to in a second, but Theo and Malik Chow on that goal for like Duvan Zapata, nobody's talking. Nobody knew who to guard in one of the best aerial threats still to this day in Serie A. How is it possible that a goal scorer that can be prolific like that is incredibly dangerous inside the 18-yard box and none of you know what to do? No one's like, okay, you get him, I got him. They're both standing there in confusion. And for me, sure, you would maybe – I don't expect Chow to step up vocally, right? Because he's struggling. He's a young player. I don't think he has a lot of confidence. This is where I expect Theo Hernandez to pick his teammates up and say, that's on me. And there's like too much of this standing around and looking in confusion. That's really bad. I think that sort of sign is a bigger issue because that should never be the case. I think Fabio Capello also like agrees with what you were saying, Jad. It's like, I'd love to play Milan right now. Why wouldn't you? You could do the same thing, and especially in this league where everybody loves to play counterattacking, even to this day. Why would you not want to sit back, absorb all that disorganized press from Milan? And I don't blame Leao for the second goal, but his body language is so shit that people are going to get on him for it. And they probably should, because like even we all know there's a bunch of issues after the failed switch, right? Nobody's protecting on that right side. Theo has poor marking. There's nobody centrally to help out. Reinders is like on his last legs trying to get back. It's a collective issue. But when your best player has his hands on his knees and he doesn't look like he could bother to run back.
You're watching at home too, and it's like you see things transpire, and you're like, "Oh, where was Rafa? Where was your highest paid player? Oh, he's in the back, not tracking back with his hands on."
He's an easier target because of that, and I don't blame him for that goal because, like, to be honest with you, that's stupid in my opinion. Because sure, there was the switch garbage, but I could literally name you 5 other players that could have prevented that. Because, okay, whatever. Someone made a mistake. How many times do we see someone make a poor pass? The defense backs you up. They get you there, right? Just like the defense was terrible yesterday. This weekend. Leao actually bailed them out. He tied the game up. That was incredible movement in the box to get them level. Mm-hmm. But obviously, it's the little details and the things like when you're not having a great work rate or if you're not being decisive, if you're not scoring and assisting and your body language is like that, you're going to get ripped for it. Because that's the standard. And I get that. And I defend everyone who's taking that angle, but I just can't blame him for that goal. I think blaming him for that goal is so silly. And I think that's short-sighted of some fans.
Real quick, just want to, I don't know if we're transitioning to another
in a topic. Second, but go for it.
It wasn't all doom and gloom on the weekend, guys. I mean, I don't know about you, but I thought Pavlovic looked awesome in his debut. I thought, Jad, everything you mentioned, defensive discipline, just stout, getting back to where he needs to be, making the good tackles, calm under pressure. He was fantastic. For all the disastrous, play in the back, he was the one constant where it was, even if they were pushing guys forward, and he was in a difficult position, back to goal and his own goal, you felt like, okay, like Pavlovic is going to take care of it. He's strong, fending off attackers and finding a way to get out of trouble. He was fantastic. And I think, Martino, you mentioned we don't have many profiles in there, or at least we'd expect Teo to be the vocal leader in the back. And,
he's going to be
Fikayo and Malik, sometimes Fikayo, but I think that Pavlovic to harp on the episode we did with what's his name,
Nemanja?
Yeah, when he profiled Pavlovic, is that I think in time Pavlovic is going to be one of those guys that is a vocal leader, that is going to hold players accountable, and that is going to be the one that says, you need to be here, you can't be over this doing this. This is your guy on corners, on set pieces, on general open play. So I just wanted to give Pavlovic.
Yeah, he can't do that on his debut. You're right.
Yeah, of course.
That's there's you would like him to be a leader, but if he's calling out guys for being bad, it's I don't know. You know how that kind of goes. So any other thoughts on the
defense? I did want to say on Pavlovic as well. I know I spoke about the defense, but watching the highlights in that game, he was really, really good. And 3
to 3 goals,
I was gonna say 3 standout things that I wanted to mention. Well, one of them was it was a beautiful passage of play from Parma where they were just doing these flicks, 3 flicks.
And
then Dennis Mann was through on goal, and Pavlovic actually managed to track back and get that tackle in. And there was another one with, I think, Malhela, the left winger.
Yeah.
Where he kind of cut across Tomori. He was through on goal, and then Pavlovic came in with a last-ditch tackle as well. He does seem like a very, very solid defender. He does look like the type that he could lead that line. I know he's very, very young, but he's got those.
He's got the potential.
Yeah, exactly. He's got that potential there. And also, it might have went under the radar a bit, but he did have a couple chances in front of goal. He seems like an aerial threat. Yeah, two headers to be fair. One kind of went off the mark. He had a defender right in front of him, but he still got to it. And then one which was just tipped over the crossbar. But I like that because I feel like Tomori is also an aerial threat as well from set pieces. He hasn't scored in a while, but that's always a good thing to have.
Yeah. It really felt like, I know we focus so much on the defensive use, but just to finish up on the Parma thing, I think Okafor had a super close chance as well that just couldn't get over the line. This is why I don't compare it to Giampaolo, because the Giampaolo era, everything was shit. Literally every single thing. He was refusing to use new signings, right? You had to pull teeth to start Rafa, get Benacer in there, even Teo. He was still working with the same old players. At least Fonseca, what I can say about him is okay, Jovic, you were terrible for 90 minutes. We don't have Morata. No Okafor, you get the start. You get an opportunity. We know Emerson Royale wasn't quite ready, but at least the hook was there to put him on. It didn't seem like Fofana was ready just yet. I know a lot of things were disjointed. No idea what happened with Benacer. I don't think anybody does. He was back in training today. So maybe he was close to leaving, maybe not. And that's why they didn't decide to play him out of that. But the change in the double pivot midfield, I didn't like any of the midfield selections at all. I think Loftus-Cheek, and we say it, we talked about it yesterday, 4-3-3 is the way to go when you have this personnel. Forcing, Loftus-Cheek to be this number 10 when, again, we say when Leao doesn't score or assist, it's a poor performance. What happens when Loftus-Cheek is the number 10 and he doesn't score? What does he do great? Because I'm struggling to find it. Because he's not great off the ball. He's not a great defender. He doesn't create many chances. He's so far better out wide as a box-to-box where he's bullying players than he is in this central number 10 advanced position or even the number 6. So my issue with Loftus-Cheek isn't so much, the player, it's how he's being used. And I think Fonseca has to do a better job of figuring that out. Did you guys agree, really quick before we move on to some of these summer moves, did you guys agree with abandoning the Pulisic, Leao, Chukwueze, and whoever is up top as striker formation or whatever you want to call it, quadrant? I don't know. It was tough. They obviously didn't do that great, but do you agree with abandoning it and going back to Loftus-Cheek?
I mean, it's difficult to say. I know that this is a group that we've wanted to see. We've been on this podcast, documented as saying we want to see Rafa, Pulisic, and everybody on the same time. Like, you have options, put them on there. But then in certain matches, in certain opponents, I think call for certain things tactically. And I think in a match like this, where it's like maybe you want to keep the ball a little bit, Parma are going to be up for it. They're going to want to get forward. They're going to want to bring it to Milan, who are currently dealing with defensive issues. So let's get guys who maybe can hold the ball, and we can play maybe a little bit less aggressive, and you kind of maintain things there. I think that this is still something that Fonseca has to iron out, right? People want to see us play our best 11 every single game. And on paper, some might think that is Rafa, Pulisic, and Chukwueze, but there might be calls for it being too imbalanced, too many guys that need the ball, too many ball-dominant players to make that impact. Maybe that's why you're seeing Ruben Loftus-Cheek as a number 10, where it's like, okay, he's physical, he can hold the ball up in certain instances, and he can allow the creative players to do what they do and interchange, in Pulisic and Rafa. And at many parts last year, it tended to work. Ruben Loftus-Cheek would find himself making late runs. He would be a threat in the box. He scored goals in the Europa League, and he had a goal output. But I think, long term, Milan fans probably want to see all three of these wingers on at the same time. But I think that Fonseca has to be the one to, decipher when do I go with an offensively aggressive team, and then when do I go with a game plan that's going to be more catered to possession and keeping the ball and dictating the game. So I think it's still early on. I want to see more of it, right? Because I don't think we had the opportunity to see much of it last year consistently. But I think that Fonseca, regardless, has a decision to make, at some point this season regarding the actual setup. Because I think 4-2-3-1. I think 4-3-3 is where we should be leaning.
John, any thoughts on those before we move on?
Yeah, so I was gonna say that I'm never really against a coach kind of experimenting with formations, especially with a new team and new players. It's just a shame that it couldn't have been utilized a lot more during preseason, and it had to be now. I mean, that's kind of what you get when you take so long with certain transfers and getting stuff done. You guys already know my kind of opinion on who I want to be playing on the right. So in terms of that,
go for it. Just let them know.
Honestly, I've always preferred Chukwueze as the right winger in Milan. I think he's a lot more direct. I think he's a lot more dangerous. I just generally think he's technically the better footballer. And I think if you watched him at Villarreal, you would see exactly why I'm saying that. And I don't think that player's lost. I know he's somewhere in there. It's just the confidence. I know it's hard to say after a whole year of playing, but you could also say that he barely played under Pioli. I feel like he was disrespected a lot. So that's not to say I don't want Pulisic on the pitch, because I feel like he's a lot better centrally. But then again, I feel like whenever there is an opportunity to have Leao, Pulisic, and Chukwueze on the pitch, then why not? I think our attack lacks that kind of threat anyway. We struggle to score goals. So as long as the midfield is strong and the defense is even stronger behind them, then they're free to do whatever they please.
And I think that was a great point right there with the defense behind them. When did they have any protection, that attack? When? Where's the midfielders that had because they were starting and Reinders is on the bench. Tijani Reinders is the best midfielder on this team. I don't even think it's close at this point. It's whether or not you think that's a good thing is separate. We'll see what Fofana does, but I think Tijani Reinders is clearly better than anyone. As much as I like Benacer can't stay on the pitch. Loftus-Cheek doesn't really fit in a double pivot. Same can go for Musa. Musa has flashes, and then he kind of resorts back to a player that is struggling and young. So we'll see. We're going to get to the Lazio game soon, as this draw is happening for the Champions League, by the way, which we will discuss. So that's been going on as Cristiano Ronaldo and Buffon are drawing teams with Ranieri. So it's computer generated. So a bunch of the games have been coming up. I have not seen Milan get picked yet. And with that, we have some big transfer news, and this one was interesting for many reasons. So we'll just start with the outgoing side of this. Salamakers and 10 million euro. We discussed this with Wayne Gerard of Wayne in Rome, who's a big Roma fan. You could watch that video yesterday, a little bit more in depth on the overall deal. So those are just one of those things that you could watch if you want a little bit more detail, but we'll discuss it here for a bit. So Salamakers ends up leaving. I always found Fonseca's comments interesting. A small part of me believed maybe he's just gassing him up so it helps the sale in the future, and it looks like that was partly to be true. And realistically, when the season started, look where Alexis Salamakers was, guys. He was a starting left back. So truthfully, I know he moved around when there were substitutes, but truthfully, did he really have a role here? You kind of knew he'd be behind Chukwueze and Pulisic, so you knew you weren't really going to see him that much on the right. The left is locked down by Leao, and I still think to this day, Noah Okafor is a better option than he is on the left wing. So there really wasn't a position for him. He was a somewhat valuable asset. He was obviously productive in some manner for Milan for a couple of seasons, did very well for Bologna just last year. And Roma need a left winger. They don't really have one. They were starting Zalewski on the side. We talked about him yesterday. So Milan basically get an evaluation equivalent of 13 million euro for Salamakers because the valuation of Tammy Abraham is 23 million. Just on the Tammy side of things, we saw Noah Okafor and Luka Jovic back-to-back games for 90 minutes. I think Okafor is better off than what we saw. But truthfully, can we count on either of them over a consistent amount of time for 90 minutes? My estimation is no. And unfortunately for them, that means Tammy has to come in. Tammy, there is obviously risk involved with this, guys. We all know this. That torn ACL, even the largely poor season in general with Roma, with the output in Serie A, he only had 8 goals. My point is for that, he had a terrible system. I really think Roma were just a terrible offensive system. They didn't create much. I understand his lack of scoring. He's very inconsistent. He was never prolific, even back in England, as you would know as well. So this is still a good player. I think what Milan did here was get one of the best backups in Serie A, bar none. I don't think you're going to find many players that could fill in over the course of 90 minutes or multiple matches like we just had with Morata go down. And I think this was a move that Milan knew could be opportunistic for them. I know most fans might not agree because of like Tammy and in general where the striker direction went this summer. But Jad, we'll go with you first. I know you're not that big of a fan of this move. What is the main reasoning behind that? Is it because of who you would have wanted Milan to have signed at the striker position and who we ended up with now? Or is it just his injury history or his just capabilities in general? Like what's the number one thing on your list that kind of makes you eerie of this?
I was going to say,
or if you have
a mix of, I think it's a mix of everything, to be fair. I guess the main thing, obviously, just as a Milan fan and seeing, especially after last season and not being able to score as many goals, just it being very underwhelming of a signing, I think. I don't know what your reaction is there. Have you seen
it's a reaction to the Champions League. I'll just do this real quick just because we're going to the Bernabeu match day 3. So Milan will be heading to Real Madrid for that one.
I love that.
This is Real Madrid's start to the Champions League, their first 4 games. At home to Dortmund, away to Anfield, home to Milan, and then away to Atalanta. So those are some big games. So just to get that, that's my only reaction. You can keep going ahead with Tammy Abraham.
I knew it was something bad.
We said they were going to be live reactions. You're perfectly fine on your opinion for Tammy. Just keep going. I just thought it was a big one. So go
no, I wanted to hear it because I was excited to see what that reaction was for. But I was gonna say I think that the only thing that it's just a bit underwhelming of a signing. I don't think it's terrible. I mean, in a way, the way I look at it, the way I'm trying to be positive is, okay, you get rid of Salamakers, who wasn't a bad player, played a vital role, even in the season that we won the Scudetto, and I will always remember the goal against Napoli. Always remember that goal against Napoli, and that just shows you what he is capable of. As frustrating of a player he can be, he did have qualities, and I think the main thing here is just that there was no room for him in this team. And if he wanted first team football, then I guess I don't know if he's going to get that Roma, but
I think he'll get a good chance over there.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of the good thing. So he kind of gets to leave, and we get a striker. So we lack goals, and it's someone who can score goals, but it's just, can we trust Tammy Abraham to do that? Like you said, it's the injuries, it's the capabilities. He did actually have like a quite a serious injury early on into his Roma career, I think, where He started off quite well, and then I think he was out for a while. I think when
I'll have to go get his injury history up. But by the way, we do have another update in the Champions League. Match day 4 at home to Liverpool. So keep going. So Real Madrid, Liverpool back-to-back weeks. So keep going there while I pull up his injury history. But that first season as well, he played fantastic in the Conference League. He had 17 league goals, and one of the statistics I posted today, this is not necessarily a great reflection of Tammy Abraham. It's more of a negative reflection of Milan. Since 2013, we've only had one player in Serie A at least get 17 goals, and I assume the both of you know who that player was, right?
Yeah.
Carlos Bacca, 18 goals. Still the highest tally since Zlatan left.
Former fisherman, right? Former fisherman, right?
Great man. But yeah, continue. I think that first season he only missed 2 matches, 21-22 for Roma. The only extensive amount of time that Tammy missed injury-wise with Roma was that torn ACL. He missed 40 matches of that. He's had shoulder injuries, eye injuries, muscular problems, but that only cost him 5 games in that 2023 season. But he obviously tore his ACL super late into the campaign. That was June 5th. So he missed the entirety of that season. So Matt, your kind of thoughts on that? And then we'll get both of your overall on a scale of 1 to 10 and what you think of the move. So go ahead.
So I'll start on the exit side because I think I have more to say on Tammy. I don't know. I think with Alexis, I think that, we saw a lot of him in preseason and we understood maybe what Fonseca was doing, and he wanted to see more of him. He wanted to see if he had a fit this club, but it was just simply a showcasing of Fonseca to say, hey, like, we have Alexis here. This guy can do a lot for you. You're gonna have eyeballs on him. Let's see what we can do and put him out there, and maybe he has some good performances, and that can jack up his value. And I'd like to think that maybe helped a little bit, because I think that, you can't look too much into preseason, but the truth of the matter is, this is a player that under, multiple coaches has done well. They've found roles to put him into where he can succeed. He was crucial for Milan in the for Milan and Pioli in the Scudetto winning season, though he didn't score a ton. You can see where he lent a hand. And of course for Thiago Motta with Bologna last year, again, playing more of like a 2-bit, more rotational role, played some games as a fullback, kind of floated around everywhere, but really did a job for you. One of those blue-collar workman-like players. And then you looked at the squad build that Milan had with the new coach, and you're thinking, where does he fit, though? This is a player that has to go. Like, you would assume he would have to go. But I truthfully was under the impression that he might be one of those last-minute guys that just somehow stays on the team. He plays in a couple of different roles, and then maybe in January they figure something out, or he gets more opportunity when there is an injury coming in, because we all know that seems to plague Milan. But I don't have any, issue with him leaving. I think, for 13 minutes, a pretty good valuation for a player that we spent a couple million on.
I think it was like 7 million total. It was like 3.5 initial, and then like the other option was like 3.5. So
we got a decent amount of money there. However, shakes up the amortization, all that stuff. I'll let guys like Isak speak on that more than me. But on the Tammy side, I touched on quite a bit yesterday with Wayne, so you guys can go check that out. But just to kind of surmise what I was saying is, I think there's definitely a player there, and there's someone that has shown in years past, and in Serie A, that he can score goals. And this is a very difficult league to score goals in, especially for someone that is young and that is new to the league. I think, it's one thing to be a player that has a well-traveled, documented record of being able to score across multiple leagues, like we've seen, with like Lukaku or Ronaldo or some of these other strikers of the past. But it's another for like a young player to come in here, settle in, and all of a sudden put up 17 goals. I mean, that's not easy. So I'm not going to completely discredit what he has accomplished. But I think that there's something different about throwing on the Milan shirt and having that pressure to deliver goals. It takes up certain personality to succeed at Milan, and it takes especially a different personality to succeed at Milan as a striker. And there's a reason why Milan have struggled for years, with the exception of Ibrahimovic and Giroud, to get a formidable, reliable striker that can give you goals in big moments when you absolutely need it most, and that can decide matches. Morata, I think, can be that striker for us. I'm crushed that he has an injury and he's going to be out potentially for the derby. He might be back, but I think he can be someone like that. I just think that with Tammy down on his confidence, kind of being moved about, maybe a change of scenery will do him well. But then I also wonder, well, if Morata's healthy and he's your guy, Tammy will play, but will he play consistent enough to get out of that funk and be a consistent producer? So it's one of those things where, again, Milan are taking a dice roll on him, and I don't hate it because, especially at this phase of the market, you're really not, in the luxury of options. But again, I'm not going to be over the moon about it. It's not a move that's going to sway me, move me to the point where I'm like, okay, Milan got their 2 strikers. We got 30 goals combined between the two. I'm just not quite there yet. But like I say, with every signing we do bring in, I'll support the player. Tammy seems like a great guy. He seems like a great, personality for the changing room. He will mesh really well with Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Fikayo, Pulisic, the Chelsea guys. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. If he's healthy and Fonseca can get him in positions to succeed, then maybe Milan have an absolute steal here.
Yeah. And I didn't mess the match day dates up. They were just the opponents that were listing for Milan. So far they have Leverkusen, Real Madrid, Liverpool, and Club Brugge. So those are the 4 matches so far. So those are half of the games in the Champions League. Moving on to a player that is no longer with Milan as well is Yacine Adli. This one we'll go over pretty quickly, right? Another player that did not fit the system whatsoever. 4-2-3-1. This isn't a number 10. This isn't a double pivot midfielder. We all like how big of a fan he is. We know he didn't get that much of an opportunity under Pioli. And then when he finally did play, he actually showcased some ability. Technical ability is there for the player. Physicality is not. Athleticism is not. He's not particularly a great goal scorer. His defensive attributes are not great either. Unfortunately for him, there was no space left. It is just frustrating for the formulas every single time we have a loan move, guys. There isn't a singular obligation to buy for a player that they've sent out on loan. Colombo, Yacine Adli, Luca Romero, and now I'm drawing a blank on the other player, Tommaso Pobega. So they've all had loan with options to buy. God knows what's going to happen there. So for me, I think this is nice. It's a decent opportunity for him. Maybe Palladino could get some use out of him. It's a 1.5 million initial loan, and I have the figures here from Nicola Schira, with the option to buy for 10.5 million. Milan would make a profit if they end up triggering this. I do slightly worry about how much of an opportunity he gets over there. I don't think he had a future with Milan. They had to resolve this issue. It was clear from the start of the training camp this summer that he didn't really have a spot within the team. Fonseca let that be known to him. He switched to like number 90 something. So you kind of knew all the signs were pointing to him heading out. What do you think of this move, John?
To be fair, I think the main thing with Adli, I was just very, very, very disappointed that it didn't work out for him because I really, really liked him. I thought technically he was an amazing footballer. I think even before he even came to Milan, when he was at PSG, he was linked with Arsenal a couple years back, maybe three or 4 years back. And I was really excited about that prospect too. He looked like a very good footballer. I think he just
put that on hold just for a second. Draw is coming up for Milan right now. Okay. So Milan's official Champions League draw, guys. It's actually not that bad. So Liverpool, Real Madrid, Club Brugge, Leverkusen, Crvena Zvezda, Dinamo Zagreb, Girona, and Bratislava. So those are the games and teams that Milan will be facing in the Champions League. That's not that bad. It started off terrible. But then it's okay. So we'll see what happens. I mean, but we do face 3 of the better teams in Europe for sure. But
who was the last team you said after Girona?
Bratislava.
Oh, okay.
Bratislava. So apologies to anyone who's a supporter of the club if I said it wrong. But continue your thoughts on Yacine Adli, and then we'll go into the Champions League.
No, like I was gonna say, like you mentioned, of course, it's frustrating how the payments and the loan deals and stuff like that. But I'm looking at it more from a football perspective. Just a player and a character that I really, really liked in Adli. I really wanted him to do well in that team. I think my only kind of issue with him on the pitch was a lot of the time I would get frustrated where he would hold the ball for too long and then make incorrect decisions and lose the ball. But technically, he was just amazing. It's just a shame that he couldn't fit into the squad, and I do really, really hope that he does well in Fiorentina.
Yeah, because you want that money from me. You want some guarantees of some cash. Matt, this was a player you and I have talked about for a while. That initial loan back to Bordeaux. We all know that performance against PSG in Ligue 1 was a very eye-opening sort of match for him. He never hit the ground running. It's kind of disappointing because he's such a big fan and there's so much emotion with it. But ultimately, you just have to cut ties at this point in time when it gets to this.
For sure. I mean, he was one of the names on the list at the very beginning of the market as, okay, Milan got to scale down, right? They got to, shed the fat and get whatever money they can in return. And, obviously Pobega and Adli were the two of the last guys, at least in the midfield conversation. Divock Origi and Ballatore were still fighting to find someone that would want to pick him up. But if not, I think those are both going to be terminations, in my opinion.
They have to at this point. What are their options?
Right, at this point? Because I don't think they're going to train with Milan Futuro, right? But Yacine Adli, just to kind of, I have the list in front of me of actual midfielders he's going to be competing with time for at Fiorentina. In no particular depth chart order, but Antonin Barak, Rolando Mandorga, probably said that horribly. Sofian Amrabat, who looks like he's going to be on his way out. I think there was interest from Turkey for him.
Yeah, Fenerbahce.
You have Kopani, who's more of like a playmaking type midfielder.
Attacking, yeah.
Amir Richardson, Moroccan, who's got a lot of promise there. So I think that in naming those players, I do think that midfield maybe does call for more of that technical player, that playmaker that can have the ball sprayed around, get it into forward areas. Maybe Moise Kean gets on the end of those, and some of their other guys on the wings can score goals. But I do think that he's obviously a player that is flawed, and he does need to be covered quite a bit defensively. And, in the right team, I think he can be useful. But I think for everything you guys just mentioned, I think that, there's clear limitations to his game. And you look at, Milan in the formation and what they're trying to do. He doesn't suit a 4-2-3-1. You're not going to put him in a certain KG match, and he's going to be able to retain the ball and do all the necessary things you need to do in the physical level that is needed in those certain matches. He just didn't have it, and that's okay. I mean, this is a player that, look, I have nothing bad to say about him. I think that he served this club quite well. What he did last year when Pioli was pretty much saying, you don't have a role here, you're free to go, and he's like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to fight for my job, and he played quite a bit. I think he made 25 plus appearances in all competitions for Milan, which is a very admirable thing for him to do, and any footballer to do, because it's easier for him to just say, I'm taking my ball and going home. I'm going to take the easy way out. But the fact that he was able to get the opportunity that he's worked so hard to get and made the most of it, and you can see all the messages that the fans have been pouring in. You can see all the messages the players have been pouring in. This is a player that loved Milan. You can see all the photos, like the barbecues. This guy was always for the club. He was always for the players, and he was never bitter with anybody, and he's a consummate professional. So I do truly wish him all the best. And I know, you made the joke that, so Fiorentina can redeem him, but this is a good player. This is a good individual of the game. And I think that, as a fan, it would be foolish of me to sit here and criticize a player that, gave everything for this shirt and to just insult him in such a way, because I think that people could be so cruel on social media when it comes to individuals on the exit side because of, their needs for players to come in. But the truth of the matter is I've nothing but great things to say about Yacine, and I wish him all the best.
Yeah, I mean, he found an opportunity for him. Divock Origi is like haggling for like NFTs and all that. Like he's just like, just leave. Like you have no role here. You can get paid elsewhere. I don't understand the point. Yacine Adli, I agree with you. And it's not completely out of the question that they would buy him. They spent 13 million on Moise Kean, who didn't score a damn goal. So if Adli produces somewhat, we would have that. So we'll go to Mr. Vos. We'll have a guest on in the coming weeks to discuss this one. This one is, I wouldn't want to say a gamble because I don't know too much, guys, on this player. I don't think any of the three of us are that well versed in him. And that's okay to admit. But overall, like the kind of structure of this deal and who this player is, Ajax is in a very strange position as a club. They're probably in one of the more chaotic times in recent memory for where they're at. They were again, if you just follow the European lad, you know how they're doing. Not great. So when a young player like this moves on, you hear mixed things. We'll find out more, I'm sure. This comes around to a total around 5 million euro for the player. The plan is, and he's a defensive midfielder, or mainly his attributes. The plan is Milan Futuro, and then get some game time with the first team. We'll see how that happens. We truly don't know Fonseca's plan, right? There's so many different things here. Like Pioli, like for example, the perfect example is like Liberali getting those minutes in the preseason, something Pioli probably would have never have done. So we'll see how Fonseca tries to ease in some of these players. I know they've played 3 games with the Futuro already. They had the 2 cup matches and then their first loss against Virtus and Trella. So they lost 1-0. Camardo almost scored. He had a great heading chance, but it was a really difficult angle. But the fact that he gets it off he's insane. I don't know if you guys saw that picture he took with Morata, by the way. Yeah. He's taller than him already. So yeah, I hope he stops growing soon because you don't want him to be that big. But yeah, he's just as tall as Camarda now. I mean, sorry, Morata. So again, with Vossen and this isn't again a move that you want to hate because we don't know what could happen, but it just becomes more frustrating that the pure defensive midfielder signing is a kid, and he's probably not going to be playing right away. And the odds of him like turning out great we don't know. And that's kind of where the frustration continues for a lot of supporters, I guess you could say, right, Jod? Like that Juve go and buy coop miners. They buy proven commodities. Milan are still in this. Well, this guy could be really good, but we'll see. We'll see how he develops. And we don't know how they'll develop players from this Serie A team in the Futuro. So what is your kind of overall vibe on this? As much of limited knowledge as you have on the player.
I would say the one word that you used to describe it, which is gamble, which I think it is a massive gamble. And I feel like we probably all did the same thing, which is kind of I think it's the most important thing you can do when you don't know too much about, like you could say, a wonder kid in this sense. You kind of go and see what the Ajax fans are saying about it, and you kind of see how they're kind of feeling about it. And a lot of them are upset about the transfer, and it kind of makes it seem a bit more positive because they're obviously upset for a reason. He must be very good. They must have seen a lot of potential in this kid. So it's something to be excited about. And if I'm being honest, I didn't know too much about him before. Leading up to obviously today's video, I did want to learn about him. I watched a few clips of his highlights from last season, and he does look really, really good. Like you said, defensive-minded midfielder. Very technically sound as well, can transition from defense into attack really good. He bullies people off the ball. He looks really, really good. It's just a shame that obviously it's not a signing that we think is going to be something that goes into the team straight away.
We have no idea how it's going to work.
Exactly, and I don't think that's something at the point that we are at now that we can afford to be doing. We kind of want those statement signings that Juve are making, or maybe Napoli are making, or Inter are making. I feel like that kind of just summarizes Milan at the moment. Is we're not seen as that big club anymore that acts like one. And all our rivals are kind of leaving us in the shadow with attracting these players. And I don't know if we're gonna get onto Kone, but I know we
can do that next.
Because I was going to mention it with the whole Tammy Salamakers deal, and it's all linked with that. And it's just kind of like, how can it be that we kind of miss out on a player just because
I think it had to do with their squad issues and offloading Benacer, which is we don't truly know. The one club that Benacer was linked with, Al-Qadish, I probably said it incorrectly, but they basically said they weren't bringing in more players that were international above the age of 21. So that obviously rules him out. There aren't many other options. And this is like the risk that you take with that, right? Because a healthy, productive, the real Benacer is better than any midfielder Roma has. Straight up. One of the best in the league. But guys, how long has it been since we could even say that? Over the course of like 2 months? I think before leading up to his injury in the Champions League, I think he got hurt against Napoli or leg one against Inter. I think it was against Napoli. He was great. He was playing in a fantastic stretch. And to me, he still looks out of shape. He looks a little overweight to me. I saw the training picture. I don't want to harp on him because this player is my favorite on this team, probably, if he's healthy. But my goodness, I'm tired of saying if he's healthy. How many times do we have to say that? I don't care who you are at this point. If we have to keep asking this question, because God forbid the guy gets hurt again, whatever potential 30 million you could have made this summer, that's probably the lowest number they were going to. What's the number going to be in the summer? Half that? 15? There's a lot of risk with that. And again, teams like Milan, who are aspirations of winning trophies, having a lot of ifs is an issue. And then again, to your point, they're kind of gifting Kone to Roma here because they give Roma that cash. They offload a higher wage player if this goes through because Di Marzio was saying there's still no agreement between Tammy and Milan. So again, this to me, what you're saying is like, if Kone is a target of yours, why are you giving that to another team? Unless all the reports are incorrect. It feels like weird indirect business that could implicate you in the future. And you just don't want that. So either of you go.
I also think too, look, we say that this potential acquisition of Kone hinges on whether Milan can get rid of Bennacer or not. Milan are in the best financial position they've been in years. Truthfully, if they wanted to keep Bennacer and get Kone, they could.
Yeah, they could. They could.
They're not going to because that's just how they work. And now they're going to have all these maybe an extra midfielder that they want. And maybe it might stump the growth or block, the pathway of the likes of Azzaroli, who they'd probably like to sprinkle in at certain moments this season. But yeah, it's just, to me, it's odd. And you look at the midfielders they're bringing, who they've brought in with Fofana, even last year. This is a midfield that they've completely overhauled. I mean, Popega's gone, Adli's gone. They brought in Fofana. They're trying to get Bennacer out there. Obviously, you still have Musa, Loftus-Cheek, Tijani. But by and large part, this is a different midfield entirely from the one that was in the Scudetto year and even the year after that. Like, this is not even the same midfield, which I'm okay with changing, right? Because this midfielder has needed a facelift for a while. But I just, for me personally, for it to hinge on, well, we're giving Roma the 10 million they need so then they can go get Kone from Milan would be like poetic justice. Because we all know Roma and Milan fan bases don't like each other on social media. We all know we have our history there. And now it's like, hey, how else can we enrage and upset the fan base that's already on edge after a slow start? I know we're going to get a player in that people are already divided on in an area that people don't feel we fully addressed to then help a team that might be competing.
That's like acting in the transfer market like you want them to. Like Roma's ambition and the money they're spending. Roma, by the way, we know this. Their wage bill has been higher than Milan's for a few years. Roma, the team was also hampered by FFP.
And then you start looking at it and you're thinking like, man, this club can't get out of its own way right now. Like, I understand I'm not going to buy into everything and all this hysteria on social media with the fan base, but like, there's something to it. And I'm at the stage now of the market where, truthfully, I just want to watch the games. Like, just end the market.
You're there.
Whatever our team is, that's what we're going with. Real quick on the Voss part. Voss, I'm saying it like it's like the fancy water, but it does feel like a gamble. I'm hoping it's something that does pan out. I think that the more we're seeing in between all these transfer stories for Milan, that Milan are pushing to get another player for the Serie G team. How many players that they've gone after, how many players that they've filled that team with. So I think that Milan's vision for Milan Futuro is to make it Juve Next Gen. And you see how a lot of those players that were in the Juve Next Gen squad have been either able to make that way up into the first team or make it up to the first team, play enough, and then be sold for money for a profit, for pure
profit. Or even their loans out, like Sule got loaned out too.
Truthfully, and we touched on this right when that team became official months ago, that is an aim. It's not just to talent factory to develop players and to hopefully get first teamers. Yes, but it's also a source of profit, a source of money for this team that Milan have been missing the boat on quite a bit. And you see with other top clubs in Serie A and the clubs that know how to wheel and deal, Atalanta, they've done a great job of that. Kulusevski, Ama Traore, they've had players come through their youth team where they've been able to sprinkle them into games, and everyone's like, look what we got. Here's 40 million offer from some team, and that's how they build their team out. So I'm hoping that he's a player that can help this team, no doubt, in the future. But I do feel that it is strictly like a numbers game because they're trying to get an abundance of quality. Yeah. And out of the 15 players, 20 players that we know of, with more knowledge in Milan Futuro, you're hoping that, hey, if half of them pan out, maybe you have a batch that you could be first teamers, and then maybe the rest you kind of sell off. That's what I feel like.
Like lottery tickets, yeah.
Correct. I'm hoping he's useful, but again, without knowing too much about him, I have some PTSD from Marko Lacetic because randomly we threw 5 million at a Serbian striker, and I don't know if this guy exists anymore. So
he's kind of been Lacetic. There wasn't really that much of a plan with him though. It was kind of poor. I remember they loaned him out to where Miroslav Klose was the head manager, and then he got sacked in the middle. But they were basically like, this guy's out of shape. This kid is like, he's not taking anything seriously. But that's besides the point. And a player that's no longer has a future. But we do actually have a match this weekend, fellas, that we're going to discuss. And then we'll go to the Champions League draw to finish this out. Lazio. I don't want to see too many changes here. I would love if Tijani Reinders could at least start. He has to start. I understand if Fofana still isn't quite ready. They need to bring him off the bench. That's okay. Reinders and someone else if you're keeping with the double pivot. I'm not really sure what Fonseca's idea is with the number 10 position. We haven't seen projected 11 for this. So, Jad, we'll go with you first here. What do you want? Do you want Royale, Tomori, Pavlovic, Teo, Magnan at the back, and then who would your double pivot and other players be in this formation?
I would say ideally, of course, I would go with the 4-3-3. And obviously Magnan in goal, Theo left, Pavlovic and Tomori centre-backs. I think it's like, I don't know how to compare Calabria and Emerson Royal. Like, I don't know. I can't see a benefit in choosing one or the other. So honestly. So I don't even know who I would want between the two. So it doesn't really matter to me. But
I would just want Emerson, to be honest.
I was gonna say, I
know Calabria is just so bad. I know for sure. I know Emerson's bad. But...
Yeah. No. I was gonna say if it was between the two and I had to choose, then it would probably be Emerson. I can't even tell you why, but let's just say Emerson for now. And then I would have Reinders in the midfield. And I just wanted to say I was actually a very big critic of his last year. And after the Euros, and especially in the last two games, he came on late as well in the first game, but he was really, really, really good. And I think he's easily our best midfielder. Yeah. Easily. And easily our best performer in most games.
He hit the crossbar too. It was a great shot.
He hit the crossbar. He had another chance as well. And he even nearly assisted Okafor. He kind of cut it across the play and then laid it onto Okafor where he missed right in front of the goal.
It was awkward.
He's really, really technically sound as well. And I'm a massive fan of his. And I think it should never be a question of should Reinders start. I think he should start every single game. And especially when a player as well, the most important thing you can do is keep giving them that confidence. It's one thing I used to hate with Pioli, where Chukwueze would play amazing, and then he would not start him the next game, and it was like, what are you doing? And then he would put him on in the last 5 minutes, and he would not play well, and people would be like, "See, this is the real Chukwueze." It makes no sense. So I think just to get the strongest team out, and in my head, because I really, really like Fofana, and he's really, really good defensively, I would start him next to Reinders. And I would put the three that I want, Pulisic, Leao, and Chukwueze on the right, and then Okafor again up front. That's how I would look at it.
Right. Yeah. I think he might be leaning in that direction.
So the starting according to Gazzetta dello Sport.
Okay.
Starting 11 that they have is 4-2-3-1. Calabria at right back, Tomori, Pavlovic, Hernandez, Musa, Reinders, and double pivot, Pulisic, Loftus-Cheek, Leao, and then Okafor. So that's, again, objective. It's not always correct, but I don't know. I've read reports, a couple days ago that like Fofana was like maybe in question to start. I think like they were kind of seeing on fitness level. I don't know. I would like to see him, obviously, to your point, Jad. I think like him and Reinders is like the ideal pivot that you'd want based on the guys we do have. If it's not going to be a 4-3-3, for all the reasons we know. But yeah, I mean, I think in a match like this, Milan need to get goals. Like I know they have
both defenses are terrible to start.
They've done really well against Lazio, but it's like year to year, like things change, right? Like different coaches, different personnel. You can't use 2 years record against Lazio and say like that's how it's going to be this game.
Of course, so different manager.
I think, look, Lazio have a lot of pressure this year. Milan have a lot of pressure this year. Match day 3, Milan need to pick up some momentum. They need to get a victory. And I would love to see Chukwueze, Pulisic, Leao, and Okafor. But I think, to what I previously said, I think maybe there is something to put in Ruben Loftus-Cheek as a 10 because maybe they want some sort of balance in the attack that maybe we don't think is there with him as a number 10. But from a ball, retention standpoint, carrying and all those sorts of things that he maybe sees with Ruben Loftus-Cheek as his 10. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, to Fonseca's credit, I do like that, he has been pretty good in knowing when to make the sub where it's like,
there's something been fine.
Calabria, you're not it. Like, you're not playing well. Emerson, get out there. And I know we don't like Emerson. He had a horrible cameo on the weekend, but I do want to give him at least some sort of credit, Fonseca, for like having the wherewithal to be like, yeah, this isn't working. I don't care if it's the 45th minute, 47th minute. Like, I'm not going to make 75th minute subs like Pioli did. And now the game's too late. So I will give him that. But yeah, I just want to see Milan get to a point over the next week or two where they can play their best 11.
We'll see. And I think you make a good point. When he made those substitutes, the game was 1-1. So like we were feeling good. Okay. The way they were playing didn't make me feel good, but the decisions, like I was okay with that. Yeah. Like if you told me every single time Milan leveled the game, they're bringing on Fofana and Emerson, okay, I would like my chances. The balance just wasn't quite there. So for me, you saw how dejected I looked just listening to it. I hope that the Calabria thing is because of fitness with Emerson Royale. There shouldn't be a reason here. This is like I'm really trying and refraining my best to make comments. Best of luck to you, number 2, because I have nothing left to say there. I just don't even want to talk about it. Loftus-Cheek, maybe. Again, this is kind of what we were just talking before. I would have liked to have seen like Chukwueze and Pulisic. I have to go with the manager here. Obviously, he sees something that doesn't balance out. I don't agree with it. I hope and want Loftus-Cheek to thrive in this role. I want them to get 3 points. 3rd straight week, they're facing a new manager with a new club, right? So, again, he has to get this together. I know it kind of sounds contradictory that we're not giving the new manager a new club sort of that time, but, they're not the ones who have won 7 Champions League and 19 league titles. Is the difference. So, a little frustrated by this. However, Lazio have been playing not great. They beat up on a crappy Venezia side. They got destroyed by Udinese. Milan have to step up in this one. There's nothing short of 3 points here. I don't want to hear it at all. Don't care. Have to get the win. It would be a big boost for them. This is a team I think that'll be competing Conference League. They didn't do that much. There isn't that much talent-wise. They've consistently have lost their best players over recent years. Milinkovic-Savic, Immobile, Luis Alberto. There's so many players that have exited Lazio that had one of their better eras since they won the Scudetto. For me, I am a little worried, but Milan have been creating chances. That's the positive side of things. And Rafael Leao loves to feast on Lazio. There's a team that he really has dominated of one of the bigger clubs. It is this team. So I think he's going to have to step up. And honestly, I think people are right, Jad. I know, I'm sure you'll agree with this. He's got to have to win Milan a game. And I know he did enough to get that game level, but there has to be one where he did against Sassuolo. I know Sassuolo is a lowly opponent, but the pressure was on in the final match day to win the Scudetto. Give me that performance, man.
Like
I'm not asking for it every single week.
He needs like a goal and assist performance where it's like head and shoulders from the beginning. He's the man of the match, and he's taking the game by the throat and winning this game for us.
He's not a great ball striker, but I still like when he's more confident and like forward with the way he's attacking. Yeah. Do you like how he's approaching that, Jod? Like that, you could clearly tell that Fonseca is telling him, be more direct, try and shoot, because when he does hit it correctly, we've seen him score like insane bangers, like the one in the Europa League top bins. I think that I forgot who that was against, maybe Ren. We've seen it against Atalanta a couple of times. So I just need to see that from him. Someone needs to step the hell up and elevate in this one, in a collective. So your kind of prediction for this, and then we'll go round table in Champions League and end.
My prediction in terms of the game, or as in for Leao? Do you want me to
both? I guess both play out. Yeah, I was just speaking on Leao from my perspective. I think that's someone that needs to step up in a game like this.
No, I was gonna say, because I do have a lot to say about Leao too. So
and go for it. And go for your prediction.
I did want to mention. I feel like a lot of the times Leao, of course, people talk about inconsistency. People talk about him not trying, him giving up and stuff like that. I feel like with me, it's just very frustrating because you know the quality that he has. But I think we should stop kind of talking about him as if he's a wonder kid with this potential. I mean, he's 25 years old now. Like we are allowed to criticize him. We are allowed to expect him to show us what he's got every single game because we've seen it before. And
the PSG match,
the PSG match, the season we won the Scudetto, his game against Napoli as well. Like we can see what he's capable of. We can see what he's capable of against good defenders as well. I feel like I'm kind of worried about him because, yes, you are saying he is becoming a bit more direct. You can tell that his game plan is kind of changing. However, I feel like he's also becoming a lot more predictable. When I've watched him play, it's if he's not cutting in and trying to do that crossfield pass that got intercepted against Parma, he's usually doing a little shimmy and then scooping it around the defender. And I feel like he's doing that a lot of the times where one of those is going to work. One of those is going to get to the byline. He's probably going to get an assist, and you're probably going to forget that he attempted it multiple times before, which is not a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing to keep trying to do that. But with a player of his quality, I just expect more from him. And I always say Leao is a scary defender to come up against. But if I'm a goalkeeper, I'm not scared of Leao at all.
Savage wasn't,
Yeah. So in terms of shooting, I love it. I want a player to get into a position and to shoot, but I think you just have to pick the right time. I think Reinders picked the right time, especially when he hit the crossbar. I think a lot of the time when Leao does it, it's like, why? You've got so many people in front of you. He has so many shots blocked every single game. He shoots at the wrong times. And there was, I think, his lack of confidence in front of goals was showing a couple times, especially against Parma, where he kind of skipped past the defender and then went to shoot and slipped.
He slips so much. It is so annoying. I don't know how it's possible.
Honestly, that literally, I've played football my whole life, and that only happens to me when I'm low on confidence. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like you feel like you're not going to score, and you just overthink it. And
you don't have your footing about you.
Yeah,
because he slipped on. I think someone played him a great ball, and his touch was great. And then he just slipped and he lost his balance. I think that's the one you're referring to.
Yeah.
I think that was in the second half of this game. Yeah, I mean, difficult, but go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's his decision-making. I'm starting to not obviously lose hope in him. I think he's such an amazing footballer. It's just the fear factor and the fact that if you're not a goal scorer, I can't call you world-class. I can't.
I get what you're saying.
It's the same thing I would say because obviously I follow Arsenal as well in the Premier League, and I always said that about Saka. I always said Saka wasn't that type of player, but now he's slowly becoming that. You can see Saka scoring those goals, becoming a goal threat, and I really want Leao to become that player. However, in terms of predictions, I'm obviously terrified because it's the third game of the season and we shouldn't be feeling like this. We have to get a victory, especially with Inter just around the corner as well.
And then Champions League not so soon after.
Exactly. But then again, Lazio, I don't think are such a great team, especially defensively, like you mentioned earlier. I remember I think we beat them last season, even away from home.
That was that chaos game with the red cards.
It was like 2 red cards right at the end.
And then the Okafor winner.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
I don't know. Do you want a scoreline in terms of prediction or?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, score lines we usually do.
Yeah,
we had the reverse last week. Yeah, we said
I'll never
2.
predict us not to concede. So I would say probably
that's actually the boldest
yeah.
prediction. Yeah,
I would probably say I would go for a 2-1 victory. But we are definitely conceding. I don't see like how it can kind of change. I'm not saying definitely like that, but I mean like I won't be surprised. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised if we concede. And I think that's the scariest thing is every Milan fan going into a game and just hoping we score more goals than we concede at this point. So
it's that is that kind of vibe. I agree with you, Matt.
I'm gonna go 1-1. I think that Lazio are home. This
is a tough environment. Yeah,
this is a tough environment. I know we've had again success playing there against them, but I until Milan can get their act together and gain my trust, I'm not just going to give it. I'm sorry. Like I thought after that first match day at home where we got kicked in the teeth twice and we galvanized and we got it back together and we were able to steal a point. I was like, all right, that was a little bit of a wake up call. Match day 1 jitters. I thought we were going to come out with much better in that Parma game, and we came out completely flat.
Yeah,
and we got embarrassed. So until Milan under Fonseca, this group can put forth a quality performance. I can't give them the benefit of the doubt, and
I agree.
For that reason, I'm going 1-1. I think there's going to be pockets of this game where Milan do look good, but the same issues persist. The defense still doesn't look resolved. Up in the attack, we still have trouble scoring and capitalizing on goals, even though we do a lot of the creation really well.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to go 1-1.
I'm actually going to go for a chaotic 3-1 win. I think they're going to create a lot of chances. I think they're going to be able to score. The 1 goal conceded is not going to reflect the defensive performance, but rather Mike Maignan preventing some of these shots from going in.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of those where you're like, oh my God.
It's going to be like a fluky goal that gets
we were so lucky to only concede 1. I think it's going to be that sort of performance. I think Pavlovic, there's going to be some more confidence with him. I think him and Tomori, that'll help out. And I would like to say this. I like to think Theo Hernandez will not be that shit again. I would hope, right? Because I think someone made the good point on Twitter. I forget the account where they were like, okay, well, if this is the worst of Theo Hernandez, right? It's in the rearview mirror. So like we're hoping and probably guessing that won't happen again. But I don't think they're going to dominate. I don't think this is like 90 minutes. Milan have fixed all their defensive issues. They're going to have to hold the fort, especially if it's Reinders and Musa. And listen, Musa, a little bit better than last year. There's still some of that decision-making that scratches your head. He's mentioned it, like I said at the start. But I think there's been some good qualities there. He needs to – I do like how Fonseca is kind of rewarding him in a way of like, okay, fine. So performance. You got your assist that helped us level against Torino. Try and build off of that. Try and do something. Because we all said this prior to the season starting. Paulo Fonseca's key reason for success at Milan and what will help him be a success if he is that he helps develop players like Yunus Musa into better players, into what they were prior to that. Same goes for like Jimenez and all these other young players. That's why they go and get someone like Vos from Ajax. You have to develop them further into stars. Lenny Yoro, for example, right, at Lille. There's another player like he helped develop, Jonathan David. He has to, and you hope that he keeps doing that. I do love that Okafor gets another chance as well. So 3-1. Okay, guys, Champions League draw. We'll pull it up right now. I mentioned and told you guys what's going to happen. So this is from Sempre Milan and their graphic here. So as we see, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Club Brugge, shout out CDK, Bayer Leverkusen, Crvena Zvezda, Dinamo Zagreb, Girona, and Slovan Bratislava. So again, heart dropped when we saw those first 2 teams. I think we all agree with that. Away to the Bernabeu might be bad. It might be historically scary. I don't have the dates for all these, but we're away to Real Madrid and Leverkusen is scary. Those are incredibly tough games. You can't really shout them at like Leverkusen. They're still doing their black magic where I think Wirtz converted a penalty in like the 100th minute of one of the games I was watching recently. Liverpool still look pretty good under Arne Slot. The Luis Diaz goal, I'm not sure if either of you saw that. That was counterattacking to perfection.
Yeah.
So 4-1 for Liverpool.
Oh, by the way, sorry. Funnily enough, he didn't even convert the penalty. He missed and then scored the rebound. That's how the black magic.
Okay, yeah. So,
so it's even more
way.
black
I just
magic.
remember he had the penalty. I stepped away because I actually had them winning that game in a bet, and then I was like, I left the room because I was so pissed, but I forgot what club I was talking about. So, and again, Girona, we'll see how they're doing. They've lost some talent, obviously, because they got poached by everybody. And guess what? Manchester City managed to get a great fee for Savinho, but it's shocking. And again, this is the Champions League. All due respect, not that bad. Not that bad of a draw. You could do a lot worse. I know Inter had a really tough one. I could pull those up. So what are your guys' initial thoughts on this draw for Milan? Either of you could go first.
I mean, look, it's the new format. Everything from optics is going to be, we got Liverpool and Real Madrid and Bayer Leverkusen. Like, at some point, you're going to play good teams, and something
to see who Inter have.
Right, you got to. It's something's going to give, right? Like, it's the new format. You're going to accept the fact you're playing really good teams, and really, when you look at the Champions League and you look at the way this new format is put out, you almost now have to kind of look at, okay, but where are they placed in the schedule? Like, do we have to do like away Juventus, away Bernabeu? So that you have to kind of take it with the full body of the schedule and say, like, okay, where do these games fit in? Because I think if you told me, and no disrespect, well, probably going to sound disrespectful, but if you gave me those bottom 4 teams plus Club Brugge, I'm signing up for that.
Yeah, of course.
Truthfully, I'm signing up for that.
Yeah.
Girona, fresh off, a great season, respect to them, but they're not this juggernaut Champions League.
Their first time in the Champions League.
You have a bunch of other teams that we've bumped heads with in the Europa League or Champions League before. Zagreb, and that one away is going to be tricky, right? But you look at some of these other matches where it's like, all right, you get to start. Hey, we get Liverpool at home. At least we don't have to travel with our first game in the Champions League. You're obviously going to have the difficult test at the Bernabeu against Real Madrid. But truthfully, it's going to be a great showcase for us and for the club. I mean, to be honest, Rafa is going to be on the field with Mbappe, all these Vinny, Rodrigo, like Endrick, and it's like, okay, you want to be,
they look so
you
bad.
Want to be,
oh my gosh.
People want to put you in the same light as these players as being, world class wingers. Here you go. Here's your platform. You do it in a match like this, the Bernabeu, when he plays great, people are going to be like, okay, this guy's for real. We know he's great. To Dad's point, we know he's capable of doing the unthinkable, right? He, in many parts of his career in Milan, has been so unpredictable, which has made him so great and unique. But he has become a bit predictable in what he tries to do on the field, and it's almost like lazy and formulaic with the way he kind of approaches going at defenders. He knows he could beat them. He's like, I'm just going to do this little move. It works all the time, and then I'll just swing across into the box.
Yeah, and the body feint. Yeah.
Right. So looking at the schedule, I'm fine with it. Like, I'll sign up for it. Like, hey, I'd rather be talking about having Champions League nights than being in the Europa League.
Yeah, not. Yeah.
So I'm cool with it. I'm excited for the Champions League season.
Jod, terrified of those first 2 matchups? Or
you know what? I'm honestly very, very excited. I'm very excited. Of course, it's big teams, it's scary teams to play, but it's the Champions League. You expect it anyway. The thing is, I know obviously it was with Pioli in the last 2 seasons in the Champions League, but I felt like we got very, very unlucky.
Last year's group stage,
exactly, and people called it the group of death. And you know what? People gave us 0 chance to get out of that group. People never expected us to get out, and we didn't. But we were so close. Exactly, we were so close. We got so unlucky. And even in the year before that, with the teams that we got, I feel like we were also in the group of death.
The Liverpool year, the first year, that one was the group of death. The second year wasn't that difficult, but they had like Porto, Liverpool, and Atletico. That was an incredibly tough one for the first time in like however many years it was.
So. I remember I was actually lucky enough to be at that Liverpool game at Anfield.
So you were losing your mind in like that 5 to 10 minutes.
Rebic and Diaz.
I couldn't because I was in the Liverpool stand with my friend. And we were both Milan fans, and we were kind of like, we were just sat there pinching each other because Brahim, like, they've scored in front of us and made it 2-1. Obviously, it didn't last too long, but we were going crazy, and it was an experience. But then again, that's the Champions League, and I'm all for it. And like you said, Matt, as well, like the other teams remaining, it kind of gives me hope anyway. Like it's going to be good. I just don't know how it works out. So how many teams like?
There's a set amount of teams like that make it.
Real quick too, while you're pulling that up, is the way the graphic. I don't know if this is the case, but like
there's no dates and orders for when these matches will be played.
I was gonna say, so like, if we can get Liverpool and Madrid out of the way.
No, it's just that's why I corrected myself earlier. It's just opponent and where you're playing them. Okay. There's no date of like, hey, Milan have to go to the Bernabeu after losing to Inter 3-1 and like I guess that there's nothing yet for that. Mm-hmm. So continue.
And I was just gonna say, so that's actually a very good point, because I think whatever layout it comes in and whatever time we have to play these teams, if we start off with like 3 games in a row where it looks like we can win, if it's Girona, if it's Bratislava, I think you said it was.
Bratislava, yeah.
And the other one I believe is the Serbian team, which also has another name, but I've forgotten what it is.
Red Star.
Red Star. Crvena Zvezda is Red Star.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. So it's just those are must-win games. You just have to put yourself in a position where you have to win the games that you don't expect to win, which is obviously so easy to say. But I feel like with the luck that we've had in previous years, I'm excited. And you know what? Real Madrid, AC Milan at the Bernabeu, it just sounds like Champions League heritage anyway. So I want it. And Liverpool too. It's like literally the 3 teams that have won the most
Champions League nights.
Yeah. Exactly.
Last time Milan hosted Liverpool at home, Divock Origi scored the winner for Liverpool. So 24 teams advance to the next round. It is like a full league table. So the 8 matches, the group matches do go into January. So game 7 and game 8 are in January 21st to 22nd. And then it looks like on the final match day of game 8, everyone plays on January 29th. I think that could be incredible. If everyone's playing at the same time, that's chaotic. So again, that's 24 teams advancing to the knockout stages. And by the way, just to even put a positive spin on it, fiscally, it's important. There's a lot of money to be had here. And listen, if Milan can't finish in the top 24 teams in Europe, bro, then there's a whole separate issue then that we're gonna have to talk about. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think you can make out a lot worse. And I got who the other Serie A clubs have to face. So I'll just mention to this real quick, and then we'll sign off because we've been doing this for a bit. So, anyways, Inter have a really difficult one: Manchester City, Leipzig, Arsenal, Leverkusen. And then the other 4 matches that are kind of against the smaller pot teams are Red Star, Young Boys, Monaco, and Sparta Prague. So Inter clearly have a tougher schedule. We'll see how they do. They're at away for City and Leverkusen, but they're home to Leipzig and Arsenal. We'll see how that goes. I do think Arsenal and Inter are kind of on the same level of teams right now. I think they're both like very good and like top 5-6 teams in Europe, I would say at worst. So Atalanta, they have Barcelona, Real Madrid, Arsenal, Shakhtar Donetsk, Celtic, Young Boys, Sturm Graz, and Stuttgart. Not the worst.
That's not bad.
Not the worst for Atalanta. That's a little rough on the start. I mean, Barca, Real Madrid just staring down the barrel is a little scary, but I don't think they're scared of anybody after what they did to Leverkusen. Juventus, they have a pretty easier one compared to everyone else. Manchester City, Leipzig, Club Brugge, Benfica, PSV, Lille, Stuttgart, Aston Villa. It's so. We'll see. We'll see how they do. It's not.
I wouldn't say that's easy. I mean, as I
was reading it through,
there's less big teams, but every single team is good.
Yeah, no,
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So I think the first 2 are difficult. Obviously, City and and Leipzig. Then it's Brugge, Benfica. Benfica, I know, has gone off to a rough start, but PSV, Lille, Stuttgart, and Aston Villa.
Yeah. So when I say every game is difficult, no disrespect to obviously the teams like Red Star Belgrade and stuff like that, but there's no kind of like teams like that. It's other than maybe Club Brugge, but then again they're Belgian and they're champions. They're very good. Exactly.
They're not awful. So there's that one, and then Bologna debutants in the Champions League. We can't forget about them.
It's going to sound brutal regardless of how you phrase it.
So, Dortmund, Liverpool, Benfica, Shakhtar, Lille, Sporting, Monaco, Villa. Italiano has done well in Conference League, making it to back-to-back finals. Just to even win one is difficult with a club like Fiorentina. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think his style of play is antiquated. We don't know how they're going to do. They got embarrassed by Napoli, by the way. They got embarrassed by them. So it's been a rough start. And obviously, when you lose Thiago Motta, Calafiori, Xerxes, some other guys, even Salamaker is a key player for them, it's going to be difficult. I think the fact that they even made it is insane. So I think they're probably just going to be enjoying themselves.
Listen, if you're Bologna, this is the first time in the Champions League in 60 years. 60 years, new format. You lead off all the teams you're playing with. Bro, if I'm Bologna, I'm a Bologna fan. You're just vibing out. You're like, bro, I'm just happy to be here. Like, Champions League, like, you know what I'm saying? You take your money, like maybe you make upset, one or two of the clubs, like you make things difficult. Yeah. Like you're the underdog. And in many ways, like clubs like Bologna, who, you lost some key players with a new coach, like they're happy to be here, but like those players are going to be like, I'm in the Champions League. This is awesome. So they got nothing to prove, and the pressure's not going to be high. So
So best of luck to Bologna. Only team I'm wishing luck to out of the Italian sides. So that'll wrap up the episode. Jad, thank you so much for hopping on, bro. Finally, bro.
Thank you for having me on, man.
I'm a terrible scheduler for the most part. Yesterday was evidence of that. But we got you guys 2 episodes, this one being an hour and a half long. Again, bro, just let everybody know where they can find you, follow you, the type of work that you do. Obviously, everything's been on the ticker. Everything will be in the description of the video, linking to the YouTube channel and all the social media stuff. So, yeah, anything else?
So, yeah, of course, man. You've already got my Twitter kind of going across, Jadinho97 at the bottom. But I would greatly appreciate everyone checking out Barra Brothers on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, seeing our clips. I feel like you would enjoy it. I feel like
they're entertaining. It's a different change of pace. It's not like you were saying at the top of the episode. Melina Dautovic, who's a friend of mine or a friend of ours, right? She goes to London all the time. She was there forever. She's great. She's from Georgia in the U.S., guys. She's a big Chelsea fan. She's hilarious. There's not many women in football that also make content that will talk shit back to you just as well as anyone else. Melina's at the top of Melina's great. Yeah. She's very funny. She's great on all that stuff. She's been on your show. And I know obviously you've had other people on as well. Yeah. Especially there's London, you guys have a hotbed of football content talent out there. I know the SDS podcast and a bunch of others are all out there. They do good work. And that's it for everything else then, right? Correct? Santangelo, give everybody your info. Like you,
follow me on Twitter at Matt_Santangelo. You guys can see it there. I've been putting out some Serie A fantasy content, so if you guys are into that thing, just follow my Twitter. You guys can get all the updates and articles from there. Milan reports. Sometimes I'm on SiriusXM. Sometimes I'm on TalkSport. All the information, anything I'm working on, of course, we'll share it on Twitter, or I'll just have Martino do it for me.
Yeah, pretty much do everything anyways. So again, guys, appreciate all of you following. Please go and check out all of our guests, all of our episodes. Subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify are usually the main 2 spots that people go to. At That Milan Podcast, at That Milan Pod on Twitter. Myself, Martino Puccio, you just follow me like everywhere. It's the same name. So whatever you want to do with that. We greatly appreciate everybody that tunes in. Jad, thank you again for coming on. We'll have to do this soon. This was our longest ever episode, so you should feel honored for that.
Breaking records.
Listen, bro, this is longer than an actual football match. This went 133 minutes, an hour and 33 minutes. Jesus Christ. So thank you guys so much. Everything's in the description. Other than that, take care, and hopefully we come back with 3 points over the weekend.
Hopefully.